This is the English Wine Collection's Wine Talks British Business podcast. My name's Guy, and this episode features a powerhouse in the experiential market. Ross Marshall is the joint owner of Your Golf Travel, Racingbreaks, Breaks, Love Velo, and Out Global Out of Office. He has been at the forefront of the online bookings world since the early 2000s. Ross explains how he uses business intelligence and great teams of people to create a company culture that drives his ideas forward, touching on a few personal stories, including a wonderful moment when he was at a steam room in St Andrews and happened to be sat next to the founder of Nando's. This chance meeting ended up giving Ross some sound advice that has stuck with him to this day. He was told, "Keep the vampires away, the people who suck your blood." This podcast was recorded in Ross's busy central London office, which can be heard from time to time. Ross, thank you very much for being a part of the English Wine Collection's Wine Talk. Really appreciate you being on board. I thought to start the podcast off, can you give me a rundown of your career history today? I know you've got quite a few companies all under your umbrella as Ross, but if you could pick a moment to start and fill us in.
Sure. Well, I left university in 2003, having done a finance master's at Durham, and started off my working career working in a sports shop, which was locally to where I lived, so I could earn a crust.
Was that just to get a job?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
It was a job that gave me a lot of flexibility, so I could pay a few bills, pay for a pint of beer on a Friday night, and allow me flexibility to start looking for a career job, which I eventually found working for Barclays Capital, where I worked on an oil derivatives desk. Before moving to ING Bearings on London Wall on a equity swaps desk, and it was then actually that working in that environment that I decided that I needed to do something more entrepreneurial, and I ended up having worked with my co-founder in Your Golf Travel, which is one of the brands that I founded at university. My friend Andrew Harding came to me and said, I'm thinking about setting up a golf holiday business.
Okay.
Would you like to get involved with me? And that's where it all began.
Okay. And then what about some of the, because you've got quite a few companies that you're a part of, how did they form off of the back of that?
Sure. Well, as I said, the golf travel business was our first business, and we launched that in 2005. And subsequently, we launched Specialising with a lady called Abby Wright, who joined the business after about 12 months. And that was because there was great demand for non-golfers. So men were booking up trips and taking their wives and girlfriends away for the weekend, and looking for things for their lady friends to do. And there was a lot of investment in spas at that time, and that was felt like the natural progression. And then
did they come to you guys with that, as in we're looking for something to do for our partners, or did you use?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, was there anything for the non-golfers?
Oh, really?
And
okay.
Outside of the sort of standardised swimming pool and the bar and dinner, and a lot of. There was a huge trend at the time in terms of hotels. Thankfully, they've continued to investing in spas and well-being, and it was the perfect antidote to the problem.
Okay. So how did, where did the inspiration come from? Because you have a very specific business model to your companies in terms of selling services. What was the inspiration behind that? Did you have a moment where that's what I'm going to go for?
Well, I think we observed quite early on that there was going to be great growth in the experience market as well as travel, and I think it was very helpful at the time that low-cost carriers were starting to open up new destinations and allowing more people to travel more flexibly and at a lower cost base, to be able to go to new places that they haven't necessarily been before. And a lot of the major airlines were expanding their routes. So as I said, that was very helpful. In terms of the products that we sell, obviously I always say golf is everyone's second favourite sport. And
why is that?
Well, because football's the number one sport in this country,
right.
Followed by probably maybe rugby and cricket and tennis and a few other sports. So, golf is, as I said, we joke about that but it is one of the sports that people can play from the age of 70 to 7, and that obviously was an attraction in it. But also, starting off with golf, Tiger Woods was very much in his pomp, back in the early 2000s, and in terms of accessing new markets and more people being interested in golf, that was quite an amazing time, because people from different ethnic backgrounds were starting to engage with the sport, which they hadn't really before, which traditionally was quite stuffy, sort of white Anglo-Saxon Protestant.
So sort of timing with that works really well.
Yeah, it did. Yeah,
okay.
It did, and also the growth in events like the Masters and the Ryder Cup, where traditionally fans from other sports started engaging in these team events, and that made a big difference as well.
So is a lot of the tournaments that you guys send people to on a part of they internationally as well? It's not just based in England and Europe?
No, we sell packages to tournaments all over the world. We actually had people in at the Kenyan Open last weekend.
Okay. Is that new?
It's a fairly new event on the European tour, but two of our sponsored players actually played in it, and one of them actually won. So that was quite good. And so basically we will send people to Kenya, they'll watch the golf, they'll play some of the local golf courses, and then go on safari. So that's quite a nice way of doing it.
It's a very unique way of experiencing it.
Mm-hmm.
If we go back to the beginning,
yep.
And when you start, I mean, it's quite a broad question, but how difficult was it to get going? Because that first step was always quite a hurdle for people to take.
Yeah, I think we sort of took the view at the time that we didn't have a lot to lose, so that made things quite easy.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, if it didn't work out, I think the percentages of businesses failing in this country are pretty high. Yeah. I think somewhere in the region of 80% of businesses fail in the first 3 years, and one of the reasons for that usually is because they're undercapitalised. And we just took the view, though, that we liked our idea, we felt good about it, we were prepared to work hard and commit to the project for a period of time, and focused on acquiring new customers and generating cash flow to allow us to actually grow the business.
Do you think a lot of this is more born out of this is a good idea, or did you strategize quite a lot?
I think we did have a plan early on, for sure, but it was more about surviving, and also about proof of concept that this could grow into, a big business. I always say that I think it takes as much energy to grow a large business as it does a small business, believe it or not. And I think our view at the time was that we were young. I was 24, Andrew was 25. And if it didn't work out, then we would find another job in due course. Obviously, you don't set out thinking that you're going to fail.
Sure.
But you also know that the odds are quite highly stacked against you as well.
How did you keep your energy up? Because obviously, those, as you said, the initial early time was really hard slog.
Good genetics. I think that was an excellent start. And I think, my father had launched businesses. After working with other people for many years, he, into his 40s, had launched other businesses, and some had been successful, some had failed. So entrepreneurship, if you like, it was kind of fairly normalised because of that, which probably wasn't the case, or isn't the case for a lot of people starting up a business for the first time. It's not necessary that someone's parents have launched a business or there's a family business. So that made it more normal that was the right thing to do. And I think to a certain degree, when you're in your early 20s, you're quite green. You don't know, and what you don't know, you don't know. And I think to a certain degree that naivety is certainly helpful.
Can you think of any moments or particular stories where, hey Dad, I need some solid advice here, where he really helped you out and guided you on your way?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my dad was sort of my mentor, and I know Andrew's father, Eric, who had recently retired at the time, helped us out early on with putting together, a business plan with milestones. A lot of businesses launch even, with no plan whatsoever, which I still feel is a bit crazy. You've got to have some semblance of a plan, at least, although that plan may change quickly. Dad's advice was, very much about not making the same mistakes. He was great as a sounding board to go and ask questions to, and sort of don't do that again, or ask this question. And I think that was certainly helpful to have. But I think it was a case of making sure early on that we counted the paper clips, because when you don't have a lot of money, you can't spend a lot of money. So you had to find ways of making your money go further, and be that. It was a 24/7 job, just to get things up and running.
Do you mean with the mistakes, as in he was helping you to foresee or overcome potential mistakes that he'd made before, or with yourself to not repeat the same business mistakes?
A combination of both. I think obviously in some respects it was fortuitous, because a lot of the traditional catalogue travel businesses are starting to go online. And I built websites at university, and then I built our first website with my brother, and that gave us almost a competitive advantage at the time. But there were just general things around, when we weren't getting. I can remember a time we spent a lot of money on magazine advertising early on, and relatively to how much money we had, and we weren't getting any return for spending that money. And it was very upsetting at the time. We launched this campaign and thought, we're going to get lots of interest, and we just didn't. So it was just sort of learning to be agile and not to do the same things again.
How did you know the difference between the attention that you would have got from the magazine compared to online advertising? Because
we had call to actions in all of our magazine advertising. So it was like, a reference number, quote X, Y, and Z, and get. And versus some of our digital marketing, the earlier days of Google, and what was Omniture back then, which was kind of Lycos and Yahoo. And we set up some pretty basic campaigns. We didn't really know what we were doing, but we were learning on the job.
So who does, really? That's part of it back then. But so within that, I suppose key was being able to track where these people came from by using these particular codes.
Yeah, that was important for us. Yeah, and so you felt like when you say that Guy, you had phoned up to book a trip, then at least you could attribute that to something. So our attribution is a lot more sophisticated now than it was back then. We track absolutely everything, but it was more of a case of, if no one said they'd heard of this in this particular publication, and that was obviously a negative thing.
Of course. So how important is it for you and your businesses to use this data then? Because as you say, it's key to be able to track it, to know where your customers are coming from. How do you use that?
Yeah, well, business intelligence is massively important, and nowadays, we've collected, I think somewhere in the region of probably about 10 million pieces of data since we started out, from different customers, and so using that data to be able to personalise marketing to them, and to for us to best understand where to attribute our marketing based on different demographics of clientele. That data is really useful. So that can be anything from paid search to a brochure to retention campaigns, email, CRM. We really go into a lot of detail about trying to understand the habits of our customers and what they want.
You touched on earlier, it was key with your business partner, and obviously you use each other as a sounding board and learning from experience. How key do you think that is for, say, another entrepreneur to have? Because a lot of people, myself for example, have an idea and you go for it. But I can see how having a business partner there as a sounding board, it's a great opportunity. I mean, how key was that for you?
Yeah, I think it was really key actually. Again, I think that depends on the certain individuals who's launching a business's key traits. I'd always played a lot of team sports, so that was quite normalised for me to have good people around me. And Andrew was a friend of mine, so I trusted him. If two heads are always better than one. That's my view. But also in terms of his skill sets were different to mine.
And what were those skill sets? Like, how did you balance?
Yeah, so Andrew is very he's a great people person. He's very likable. I'm not saying I'm totally dislikable, but Andrew's very disarming, and he was very good at going out on the road and setting up a lot of our key partnerships and relationships with hotels and suppliers at the time. My skill sets were probably a bit more analytical, a bit more numerical, and and that was complementary. But the main thing that we had was trust, and I think because we'd had a small level of success running businesses at university, which were profitable, we believed, rather probably naively, that we could scale a bigger business. And it kind of has happened like that, but it was more just the belief that we could do something and do something together, and we were both prepared to work hard to make that happen.
Were you, what I thought was quite interesting that you touched on there was how his skill set was almost go out into the field to meet people,
Mm-hmm.
and yours was based a lot more on the computer and sorting things out. Were you aware of how you both could interplay with each other at that time?
Yeah, it was really, division of labour.
Yeah, absolutely.
As I said, the view at the time was that 2 pairs of hands were better than two. And, we divided up where we thought we could both make a difference, and that's how we started out. And I think, definitely having someone to run ideas by, but also those early days are a real roller coaster. There are some very difficult times, that, if you are burdening that by yourself and you have no one to share it with, it's not necessarily a healthy environment. So I certainly feel fortuitous that Andrew was there, because there were some very low moments.
Sure.
During the early stage of the business where, we'd both gone from having good jobs and earning money to basically being quite poor and moving back in with our parents and trying to make something work, and it certainly helped having someone else around. Just to keep your spirits up more than anything else.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you remember any of those moments and how you got through them? Was there a specific banging your head against the wall, as it were? And
not really in terms of the business. It was just a case of I think it was quite difficult being in your early 20s, and obviously, as I said, both of us. Andrew had worked at Deloitte, I'd worked in banking, we were both earning good money and had moved out. So that sort of movement backwards,
yeah, of course.
For people who sort of, most people in their lives are trying to self-improve and, want to move forward. And I think to move backwards, that was quite difficult to accept initially, especially, friends of yours are going out on, a Friday night and, doing their own thing, had their sort of freedom and liberation. And, we were either working or, trying to find ways to pay bills.
I think the way you've put it there is it's not necessarily a step back, but more a step sideways.
Yeah,
so
maybe.
You kind of move over
financially,
forward.
I'm just saying financially it was a step back.
Yeah, no,
from
sure,
having
no
money
doubt.
in your pocket
Of
and
course.
right, what are we doing this weekend, to literally I'm working all weekend, and is there any way that I can earn some money to supplement my income while I'm investing in this business? And I think, as I said, the one thing that certainly gave both Andrew and I has made us incredibly resilient mentally, which to a certain degree I think we probably had anyway, but as I said, that was quite difficult because a lot of people at the time were very negative about what we were doing.
I was going to say, what was if you say it was key to you just getting through that, was it strictly determination, or I mean, you touched
Yeah,
on
but
resilience there, but
but I think we could see that the business was growing. We could see there was demand for a product. I think both Andrew and I live in the real world 99% of the time. So there was no rose-tinted glasses about what we were doing, but we were hitting some of the KPIs that we wanted to, that we needed to. And I think, certainly during those earlier years, that we certainly knew that, if certain things didn't happen, it was going to be over.
Yeah.
So it was like you've got to find a way of making it happen. And I think that's probably helped as the businesses have developed and a lot more established now. Finding a way to make things work, and that determination is massively important for any entrepreneur.
Was a lot of this part of fitting in with the plan and the structure? But as you said, so you had a key goal, a target that's got to be there by that point, so you could track your progress.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that was massively important. So even though we weren't necessarily earning a living, so to speak, hitting those key performance indicators early on in the businesses. And they could be basic things like number of golfers, a number of hoteliers that we signed up, etc., etc. Hitting those key drivers in the early part of the business gave us confidence that there was going to be some light at the end of the tunnel.
Were a lot of those KPIs, were they based on financial reward, or were they on the growth itself? I need X amount of clients, and so 5 years down the line I'll then get the financial reward from that?
Yeah, no, it wasn't. As I said, it was about building a business, building a customer base, and surviving. So, I think probably for the first 3 years, Andrew and I, drew, next to no salary out of the businesses and reinvested every penny that we had. And but, there was some solace that at least the business was growing and moving in the right direction.
Can you say what the key reinvestment was? Is it people, or was it this idea?
We hired more people, certainly in revenue generating roles. I think that's really important.
Does that just mean sales, or is there other elements to that?
At that stage it was.
Okay.
Yes. And we invested in the website to improve that and our marketing. And took advice from people even back then about search engine optimization and as I said, we talked about paid search earlier, but also newsletters, offers, and we were, in terms of the way we displayed a lot of the packages that we were selling, that was quite unique into the market at that particular time.
In what sense? What was unique?
Well, just in terms of, we packaged things up, which hadn't historically happened in.
So do you mean different products or elements?
Exactly right. Yeah, different components of holidays, and we did some fun stuff. I remember we did early on. We booked some trips where there was we had free beer included for customers. I think free Guinness, I think, was one of the promotions that
did it work?
It did. Yeah, it was popular from a low base.
So, with all of these businesses, there's a heavy emphasis on sport.
Sure. Sport and travel, yeah.
Sport and travel, yes, thank you. So do you participate in any of these yourselves, or? I'm
still an active golfer. I'm fairly I'm not as active as probably I'd like to be, but that's my 16-week-old son has got in the way of my golf swing. Although I did play some golf out in Dubai a couple of weeks ago. I was playing at 6 a.m. in the morning to get back to look after him. So I'm still active in that regard. I love the stuff we're doing around spa and wellness, cycling. Some of the guys that we've got working for us are unbelievable athletes. As time has gone on, I'm not as unbelievable as I once thought I was. It's quite hard work. They took me on the Team Sky ride in Mallorca, and I thought I was going to have a heart attack. So, horse racing has been a big growth area for us. Our business, Racingbreaks, and I'm still involved with owning horses with friends, and still go to the big meetings. I was at Cheltenham last week, and obviously we're doing some broader stuff now in the honeymoon business and also LGBT sector. And I love long haul luxury travel, and finding new destinations and tailor-made itineraries, great guides, and seeing things for the first time in new places. So yeah.
What are the courses like in Dubai? How do they differ to over here?
Well, they're very close to the city centre. So wherever you look, you've got beautiful views of some of the architecture in Dubai, including the Burj Al Arab, obviously the world's second tallest building now, I think. And so most of the golf courses are 10 to 15 minutes from the centre of town, and as you can imagine, they're in a desert, so desert terrain.
Yeah.
But
it's
really
a big bunker.
Huge bunker, but the conditions of the golf courses, they've invested significant amount of money in. Sheikh Mohammed, the ruler of Dubai, who I've met before, he basically, he's not a golfer, but he understood the value in investing in multiple golf courses. I think they're up to about 14 now, and they host 2 world-class events in Dubai every year, the Desert Classic and the main European Tour final. And obviously they were trying to attract a demographic of customer to come and live in Dubai and socialise, and now they've got golfers from all over Asia, India, as well as the UK.
And it's working through your business. It's sort of driving.
Yeah, it's been a popular growth area. I mean, Dubai, as you know, is now set up for tourism.
Sure.
And golf's been a big pull in the area.
So, all these businesses that you have and that you operate, Ross, it's all a very specific business model in the sense that you're effectively selling on services, if you forgive me for putting it like that. I was just wondering, have you ever thought about operating your own in that sense? So as in, instead of you're selling the holidays, or you're selling the spa experience and so on, and the cycling, etc., have you thought about, say, owning a golf course? Or
I've been offered quite a few golf courses and hotels over the years.
In England? Or?
In England and overseas.
Right.
And we have considered it, but I mean, in respect, I think it's a nice pipe dream.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I think the reality of owning a hotel or a golf course and the work that goes into making those businesses a success, are not something for the faint-hearted.
No.
And I think my view is that if you are good at doing something and you can replicate it and find, verticals as well as horizontals, to expand in that regard, I wouldn't rule it out in the future, but I'd want to be hands-on to really personalise.
You'd want to be there and be involved.
Yeah, and I think, I'd want to put my stamp on it and ensure that it was something that offered a great experience for all the people who went there, and very personalised and probably quite relatively boutique as well. And I think that would be a huge distraction away from me where I am in my life at the moment, which is already pretty busy.
It would take over as more of like a personal passion project, as it were.
Definitely, yeah. Which would be amazing, as I said. To own a hotel and golf course, I think it'd be absolutely fantastic. And I was with a great friend, Graham Wiley, last week, who owns Close House, and
right.
Graham is a very successful businessman in his own right, and set up and sold Sage. And he bought an estate in the northeast, and he's developed the properties on it and the golf courses on it, and it's about an amazing personal project for him.
Sure.
So maybe one day. Never say never.
No, absolutely not. I wanted to touch on, you mentioned your business partner earlier, and I was wondering if...
Or partners, business partners.
Excuse me, partners.
Yeah.
Very well, but I was just wondering, I imagine it's very important to have somebody to talk to, a soundboard, as it were. How relevant or how important has that been for you?
Yeah, it's been really important. As I said, I mentioned about my dad earlier.
Yeah.
Sadly passed away fairly recently, but he was a great sounding board for me, and someone I learnt a huge amount from. So I would say, growing up around my dad, who would talk to me about business, involve me in conversations, was very helpful from a young age in terms of, I guess, my training. I think in terms of, having a broad spectrum of people that you can turn to, however you find those people, and having business mentors is massively valuable.
Can you think of anything that your father said, like a particular moment or comment that's always stuck with you?
I think most of the advice, I could talk at great length about my dad, but and things that he sort of trained into me. But I think the main thing was that about looking after your people, and having the right people around you, and really looking after those people well, really recognising them and taking them on a journey, especially from an early stage of the business.
So does that mean for you that it's about retaining the staff that you have, and then as businesses grow, they develop with you?
Yeah, I mean, you hope that doesn't always work out like that,
of course,
but you want to invest in good people, and certainly people who've been very loyal. And I think this is somewhat overlooked in the sort of modern globalised world. Loyalty I still think is incredibly important, and you want to develop people as far as you can take them on that journey. Now that doesn't mean that you don't have tough decisions to make at certain points in time, but that's really important. So Dad always used to say, you can never recognise anyone enough, and he didn't mean just financially. And I think he's right. People have, and so in any meritocracy, you want to celebrate wins all the time, and you've got to celebrate your people, especially the ones that make a real difference to you and the culture of your business. And I think, as I said, I remember Dad saying to me in the really early days of Your God Travel, really be careful about the people that you surround yourself with, because they will set the culture for the business as you expand it.
What would you say your culture is? Sum it up? Or?
I think the culture has evolved over time, because
sure.
Obviously when you're a fledgling startup, it's all about, brute force and grunt and hard work and endeavour, and trying to get to somewhere, trying to survive. So I think it's evolved over time, but we've tried to base a business around, creativity, hard work, fun, and rewarding success. I think, people spend so much time at work. I think it's absolutely essential that people really are very passionate about what they do. So I don't think anyone can be great at anything unless they really love it.
So it's very important for you to build up a sense of community and family base within your businesses.
Yeah, and I think that's been important as something as a private business that I think you lose that. It's been harder as time has gone on. We went through 50 people, 100 people, 200 people, 250, 300, 350. And it's a lot harder to maintain. But I think I always talk about maintaining standards here. And I think as businesses get bigger, you have to have a really strong sense of what your culture is and what that means to the people within your organisation. And we even did some work last year on that to re-establish what that culture was and what were the key things that were important to us in terms of our staff, but also our customers.
So it's about the core beliefs of the business,
Absolutely,
as you say,
yeah.
and then sharing those with the staff, making sure they understand them.
Well, it actually, the more important things it's just that actually came from them.
Okay, so what do you mean by that then?
Well, we actually, as part of that process, we spoke to our staff, we spoke to our customers, as in, people who actually buy holidays, and we spoke to our suppliers as well. And we did a huge amount of work engaging with them to get their view on the world in order to come up what we thought were, our strong beliefs were.
So it's about involving people, and
engaging them, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So it wasn't what I viewed it as.
Sure.
It was very much, what the feedback from those three sources
What about filtering through that? Because obviously there's a lot of extra opinions, and ideas.
So we actually brought in an external company to work with us on that, to run that process independently. And we thought it was really valuable in terms of what was important to all of those people and what was not important.
So with all these businesses, you've got Ross and all these ideas and inspiration. I'm really drawing on it from you. I'm curious, how do you take time out? How do you unwind? What's your go-to, as it were?
Well, to be honest with you, I see work as an enjoyable part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people go to work, obviously, and they do their 9 to 5 and they go home and they don't think about work, work and developing business is very much, a part of me and something that I enjoy. So it's, there are a lot of difficult things that I have to do as part of anyone running in any growing organisation. There are always difficult decisions that have to be made. But, primarily, most of the stuff that I do is really positive. And, the good thing about running your own businesses is that, you can, kind of direct the route and strategy for those businesses and include things, that are, part of you and the things that you want to do, in order to try and make those businesses great. So in terms of, I don't really I work very long hours when I have to, and I don't work long hours when I don't have to, but I'm often thinking, there isn't a day that goes by that I'm not thinking about work.
Sure.
In terms of relaxation, as I said, love travelling, still play sport, play some tennis and cricket, and the body creaks a bit now. Knees hurt, back hurt, shoulder hurts from my sort of younger rugby playing days, but and I'm an outdoors person. I like going to the beach, and I hate being stuck indoors. I hate sitting down for any length of time, and I'm always trying to learn new things and develop myself and my knowledge and understanding of various things. So
I think what's interesting about what you were touching on there is having the separation to allow, as you say, you've kept fulfillment elsewhere to allow ideas to come through. It's having that space. And
I'm quite good at switching off though, in terms of if we went out for dinner, Guy, I wouldn't be thinking about work unless you said something that, I'd be in the moment, engaged with you. I'm quite disciplined about when I work and when I don't work. So if I'm out with friends or family, I'm not on my phone,
Sure.
I'm not engaged with social media or any of that, and I'm quite disciplined about that.
So would you say that you're either all in or all out?
Very much so, yeah.
Okay.
Very much so, but and I think that's really important in terms of this day and age, because you're bombarded with so many marketing communications, the whole time, and I mean it's absolutely insane.
Sure.
And I think it's actually part of the reason that we have a huge amount of mental health issues in this country is simply related to that. People getting phoned, emailed, Instagram, Facebooked, tweeted, WhatsApped, text. I mean, just continued bombardment. If you can't take yourself out of that and focus on other things and use your mind in different ways, I think it's really negative.
So as you said, the separation is the key. You're either in or you're out. But when you're out, you take your time out. Just focus.
Although I'm not good at sitting down. So when I was in Dubai, I did take my wife and our little baby with me, but you won't find me sitting by the pool for long. I'm exploring. I'm looking for new things to do.
Sure. That's a good time, actually, because I was just going to mention that you've become a father recently.
Sure.
And how do you find the work-life juggling act? I mean, obviously you just mentioned you take your son over to Dubai, but how is it balancing that? Life changes.
Yeah, it does, but it's definitely changed for the better. So, as I said, my son Henry, he's, as I said, only 16 weeks old, and he's been brilliant. I mean, to be honest with you, I think we've been quite lucky because he only woke us up twice last night. So
that was last night.
He's been a great inclusion to the family, as I said, especially after losing my dad in difficult circumstances. So, he's the next generation, and
Sure.
Looking forward to developing my relationship with him. And both my wife works, and she's got a very serious job, and she's going back to work soon, and it's very much a balancing act and between her time with him and my time with him. But it's important to me that I'm heavily involved in his life, and I realise also now, not only because of the responsibility of being a father, but also it's enriching as well.
Sure. I think what's key, I picked up on then, is how you're effectively you're all in or you're all out, and you just focus on the task at hand all the time, whether it's your son or your businesses, etc. One of the things I wanted to touch on with you, Ross, is that you've been quoted, let me get this right, you've been quoted as saying your biggest luxury is breeding and racing thoroughbred horses. Where did that come from, and what does that mean to you?
My grandfather was interested in watching horse racing, and he used to take me. My father travelled extensively, about 6 months a year when we were growing up, and my grandfather used to take me out for golf, and also we used to go horse racing. So maybe a strange thing for a young man to be participating in, but because of that, from an early age, I learnt about it. I was interested. I think horses are the most beautiful animals, first
Sure.
and foremost. I think obviously there are risks involved in racing them, but as I said, in terms of luxury, it is because it's very expensive to buy and train horses, more so than ever. And but it's a great fun. It was Cheltenham last week. We had a couple of runners. They didn't do very well, but thankfully they came back safe and sound, and they were great days out with some great friends.
Sure.
Very social occasions, and it's one of my bucket list things to have a runner in the Epsom Derby, because that's where I used to go most regularly with my grandfather.
Okay, so you're going to continue having that luxury, as you say.
Well, as I said, it is it's an expensive hobby, but I go in now with great friends, and so we share the bed, and because racing is one of those things where generally, only one horse can win every race, and generally obviously it's a labour of love and an investment in fun, but an expensive one. So you have to be an eternal optimist to get involved in horse racing, because to be honest with you, if you're not, you'll be very disappointed and give up very quickly.
And it sounds like you can also share the load, as it were, in that sense. With
Yeah, look, as I said, it's great to get some great friends involved that are also passionate. So we have a group of people that are interested in playing golf and owning horses, and we've had some success recently, and I think we had about 8 horses in training, and they all won last year.
Oh, you have 8, sorry.
Yeah, amongst
wow.
a group of us.
Okay, yeah.
And as I said, a few runners at Cheltenham, and we've got a runner on Grand National Day, so that's really exciting.
Wow, okay, that is. Yeah. If you took yourself back, Ross, or say looking back on your career, and you met, say, another young person, or you're getting involved in business, what do you think would be a key bit of advice? You could say, God, I really wish I knew this.
As I said, I think I touched on this earlier. I think in order to get a business off the ground, I think you've got to have a great business idea first and foremost.
Sure.
But I hear a lot of people write to me asking for investments in their business or advice, and there's a huge amount of ideas out there, and I think sometimes it's more about the application of how to make that happen, which is lacking. And I think a lot of that is, you asked me earlier about my relationship with my university friend and co-founder of Your Golf Travel, Andrew Harding, and I think, as I said, you need to surround yourself with people who are incredibly positive.
Sure.
And you need to have that mindset that you can be, you can achieve, and set yourself small benchmarks along the way to try and do that. I think in terms of advice, I got some very good advice early on in a steam room in St Andrews by the founder of Nando's, a guy called Robert Brosin, who's actually South African, and he said to me, this actually stuck with me, and I talk to people about this. Weird circumstances, admittedly, we're sitting there sort of naked in a steam room, get chatting, and we were saying we're just starting this business, and he said, business, okay, what do you do? And Nando's, obviously they'd licensed the business worldwide, and he was the guest there at Coca-Cola. And and he said the main thing to remember is keep the vampires away. And so, vampires, what's he talking about? And he said, people who suck your blood. He said, because there'll be lots of people out there who, and he said it's nothing personal, but the majority of people out there will want you to fail. And it's important that you surround yourself by people that believe in you, believe in your idea, and actually give you energy rather than taking your energy. And I thought that was actually massively sound advice, and something that has resonated with me since I started out the business.
So it's the positivity of
people that, there, as I said, we can all, in the difficult world that we live in, there is a lot of opportunities on a daily basis to get negative about a lot of things.
Sure.
And it's not that I'm oblivious to, some of the challenges that people face on a day-to-day basis. I just choose to be optimistic and surround myself with people who are optimistic and believe in the cause and what we're doing, and that has been as good as advice that I've had from anyone in terms of building teams and building a business, because certainly in those earlier years, people are going to try and knock you down into the ground, and you've got to keep moving forward. So
it's essentially, as you said, it's your choice how you view it and how you're going to pick yourself up and get on with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are obviously always going to be bumps in any road, and sometimes you have to change direction pretty quickly. But as I said, you need that nucleus of positivity in people around you. And I know this sounds very generic, but I think it's absolutely true, because most people will go on a mental roller coaster in the first 1 to 5 years of their business.
Sure.
And there'll be a lot of self-doubt, partially which drives you on, of course, but also there'll be a hell of a lot of negative things that happen that you have to roll with. Either you don't know it, or you made a mistake, or you've got to change direction, or someone's being difficult towards your competitors trying to lock you out of a market. I mean, it can be a lot of different things, but I think that staying on course is really important in terms of what you believe, as long as you're not lying to yourself, and obviously having those positive people around you are really important.
So it's facing up to the reality, and as you say, not being deluded by it or living a dream.
Yeah, I mean, I do see that a lot as well, is where, I think one of the things that we've been able to demonstrate early on is that there were demand for the products that we wanted to sell. Mm-hmm. So you could see people actually buying the product.
Yeah.
I've honestly seen businesses that people have invested millions of pounds in that in 2 years have never done a sale. Okay. And you're sort of scratching your head and saying, yeah, it's still a great idea. Yeah. Or people start up and they build some amazing tech, and the platform is absolutely formidable and does everything, but no one wants to buy that product, and they never thought to sample that in the first place.
Is there any interest for it in that sense?
Exactly right. So I think, launching businesses dirty, testing if people actually want the product and going to buy the product is really important. To get that feedback early on is essential.
So it evolves over time, as you
Definitely,
say, you can adapt. And
yeah, absolutely, because nothing is ever going to, business is all about, there's no end to business. There's no end point.
Sure.
In any business, it's just about, incremental improvement over time and evolution. So you can never actually finish business, because there's always something else to do.
And then if you do come to a point you hand it on, don't you? It's still there, as you say, it's continuous, it's constantly going. Okay, Ross, so if we move on to some wine now. I know you're a man who likes wine, very much like myself. I was wondering, do you have a large collection at home? How does wine come into your life?
I have a small collection. A very good friend of mine works at Bordeaux Index.
Okay.
And he's an old friend of mine, and he has been. I have a small keep with them, where I'm keeping mainly champagne, but also a few Burgundies as well.
Okay. Well, can you tell us about any of the wines you have there?
A variety of new and old. I do have some very old Dom Perignon.
Okay.
Including it dates back actually to I think about in the early 1950s.
Oh wow! Okay.
So yeah, very old.
Yeah.
And I've got some 85, which was a good year. Some Tachinger, and some Bollinger as well. So and also I do in terms of like some of the smaller grower producers. So Jacques Salos, Jerome Prevost, which are all local to Rheims and Epernay, and so I like going visiting over there and selecting. And then I've got a selection of Burgundies from some of the big houses there, like Mouton Rothschilds and stuff like that. But they're quite expensive, and I don't have, huge amounts of it. But I've laid down a little bit for my son actually, and and I will pass on to them. And I do have some port as well, some vintage port.
Is that the idea to hand them on, or it's
not an investment for me. I do occasionally drink them,
of course.
As I said, mainly champagne and red Burgundy. That tends to be
a real stand-up.
Absolutely, yeah. And also, look, I take advice in terms of what's collectible as well.
Is collectible, does that mean whether it'll age well for you, or just
well, it'll age well,
wine?
And also, there's a view that it's a good wine and it'll appreciate in value. So, as I said, Andrew gives me a steer, and and it's nice to obviously go down to, and I try and occasionally I get invited on some nice trips down to Bordeaux and places like that, and I try and take my golf clubs with me if I've got time.
That's at least quite well onto my next question. Actually, I was wondering if you had any one of the things I like to discuss with people's particular wine story or wine moment. I imagine going on golfing holidays down in Bordeaux and drinking wine must be pretty special. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, no, we do a biannual trip down to the family that own Whispering Angel, Rock Angel.
Okay.
These rosés have been very popular, so we tend to head down to Golfe de Medoc in Bordeaux, and we'll go and visit them. And a good friend of mine, this bottle here of Merceau, owns this brand Mischief and Mayhem as well. So I try and support him as well. But in terms of I've been lucky enough to go to tastings of Petrus and Chateau Lafite and Mouton Rothschild and stuff like that.
Wow.
Really special, and at different places. As I said, I get invited to the Lebrun every year to taste some of those, so that's pretty fantastic.
Yeah,
to taste some of the really expensive. And I'm a member of a club called 67 Pall Mall, which is set up purely for wine lovers. So I keep some wine there as well, which I drink. I go there and drink. Obviously. We should go there for a drink sometime.
Love to. So Ross, if we look to the future now, what plans do you have for yourself and your businesses?
Sure. Well, in terms of my businesses, I'm trying to optimize, what we've got at the moment. So we're internationalizing our golf travel business. So we bought a business in America last year, and we're in the process of buying another one. So that's really exciting because the US golfing market is worth $21 billion, and there are somewhere in the region of 6 times more golfers in America than there are in the UK.
Can you just to
Sure.
touch in there? On that idea, do you expect people to travel to America from here, or will your audience be just for, let's call it locals?
So we already send European golfers, primarily from the UK and Ireland, over to America, to
great, okay.
places like Florida, California,
Sure.
and Vegas, places like that, Long Island. We also have, so the business that we bought in America focuses primarily on people traveling within America, Americans traveling within America, Canada, and the other one that we're trying to acquire pretty much focuses on bringing people from America into the UK and Ireland to go to St Andrews, go to Dublin, Ireland, other places in Scotland, play some of the Heathland courses around London.
So, what about for you personally, though? Because it's obviously all business.
Sure.
What about yourself?
What, in terms of my journey as a business person? Well, my focus is really right now on taking these businesses as far as I can possibly take them.
And what does that mean for you?
So, as I said, internationalization is a big
Sure.
part of that. Where are the opportunities to expand? I'm looking at a few new business ideas. I've expanded out of travel. I'm now involved in, commercial real estate. I'm involved in picture libraries for family-related business and printing. And so, in terms of, I've got quite a lot of interest in different areas right now. So it's really, I like to get involved in businesses that interest me and that I'm passionate about. And my viewpoint is, as I said, very much about, in my journey with this business, is how far can I take them?
So it really is a carry on pushing forward.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, to be honest with you, if I wasn't doing that, I'd fire myself and get someone to take over the business, because I think you need that drive and steely determination. I think to a certain degree, businesses go through different stages of development. I talk about 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0 in terms of some of the businesses and the evolution of those businesses. So, and you've got to keep reinventing yourself and understanding what the next right thing to do is.
Sure.
And I think, learning and a real, hunger to evolve and self-improve is massively important. I guess when I don't feel that anymore, or I don't love what I do anymore, then that will probably be time to either replace myself or sell off the businesses.
Sure. So you essentially go on your own indicators, as it were. You'll know where you are and when's appropriate.
Sure, and I think learning is massively important to me. I'm someone who's got a real thirst for, personal development. So, I'm not, because I've developed businesses now that are, reasonably substantial as SMEs. I don't think I'm necessarily the best thing since sliced bread, and the second thing is I believe I can be better and improve, and it's important that I feel that way.
Sure. Ross, I think that's the perfect way to wrap things up. Thank you very much.
No worries at all. Thanks, Guy.